Hello, hello. If there's anybody around, come and say hello. What I thought I might do, I got a bit bored. I've had my nana nap. I'm all G, and I thought, depending on how many people are around, we might have a bit of a watch party. Um, it was the anniversary of Jessica Boyce going missing in the last week, and I thought that that's a video that we could watch together. Like I say, if there's a few people around, I don't want to watch it by myself because that's not really that fun. I want to chat. I want to catch up with everybody and see how everybody is. Hi, Sixth Sense. Good to see you. Hello, Nana TJ, because I said I just had a Nana nap. Yeah, all right. Don't knock the Nana naps. They're really, really good. Jesus, I'm glad I'm not talking today. Don't knock the Nana naps. Come on, you must admit, Amelia, that you have naps and they're really good. Naps are great. So, come on in. Like I say, anniversary of a cold case from New Zealand tonight that was one of my earlier videos. So I'm not actually sure. I can't remember if I'm wearing a wig or sunglasses and how ridiculous I am or how ridiculous I was. I guess we will see. I love Nana naps too. Yeah, but look, we'll start it and we can chat away while we watch it. Please subscribe, like, give us a thumbs up, all that stuff. The membership thing's pinned at the top. Everything you need to know is in the description box below. I do want to give a trigger warning. This does have a little about mental illness in it. So trigger warning, please. And hopefully if any mods come in, they can pop that trigger warning in throughout the watch party. So we'll get started, guys. I'm excited to be with you. Like I said,
I'm TJ. Welcome back.
one of my old videos. So we'll see. It may be TJ phase 1, glasses and wigs, so we can have a bit of a laugh about that. And remember how far I've come. Let's go.
Back to New Zealand Mysteries. I'm glad that you're here. We are a community at New Zealand Mysteries, just wanting to bring awareness to missing persons and unsolved murders, mainly from New Zealand, but around the world. I apologise in advance for the audio and video. It's not the greatest. I'm working on a cheap laptop and just using that microphone with free software. One day I'll upgrade, but at the moment it is what it is, and I've got to work with what I've got. In the description box below, you'll find links to our Facebook page and our website. The website has an extensive list of missing persons. If you'd like to support the channel, it's great stuff. Let's get into it. Today's episode, we are talking about the disappearance and of homicide, the thinking of Jessica Boyce. So we're going to go to reporter.nz, but it says the sources from stuff.co.nz. The family of missing Marlborough woman Jessica Boyce are worried she may have been taken. Boyce's mother, Kay Johnston, said family and friends began to suspect within days of her disappearance that Boyce, 27, might have been kidnapped from a forest park. Boyce was last seen on March 19, 2019, driving her mother's red Holden ute. Two hikers found the vehicle abandoned near Lake Chalice in Mount Richmond Forest Park, 90 minutes west of Blenheim on March 22, and called the police. Now, I'll quickly show you a bit of a map so you know what we're talking about. So if you look to the right over here, this is Blenheim itself, and it is at the top of the South Island of New Zealand. So down here, Renwick is where Jess was from and went missing from. And down here, this huge thing is the Richmond Hill Forest Park. And in here is the Lake Chalice car park. And that is where the ute was found. Inside the ute were Boyce's wallet, spiritual crystals, and phone with no SIM card. The car was unlocked and both the front windows were down. Her family found it odd that Boyce's vehicle was parked on the mountain track and her stuff was in the car. Her mum said it was the way they found the ute. The whole thing just looked like she'd been taken. She might have been up there at Lake Chalice, but she never made it out of there by herself. We think she's been taken, and we've told the police that. Jess could have been picked up and held somewhere, but without the right material that they need, police can't do much. A police spokeswoman said on Thursday that police were continuing to carry out searches of the area and information continued to be received and investigated. She did not confirm whether police had ruled out kidnapping. Police and Landsar searched the forest park and its huts when the red Holden ute was found, but suspended their efforts on March the 26th until more information came forward. Johnston, her mum, said she was concerned for her daughter's safety, as her mind was like a 6-year-old's when she went missing. Boyce suffered from depression, anxiety, memory problems due to a car accident 2 years earlier and was self-medicating, she said. Boyce was referred to the Marlborough Mental Health Service in Blenheim by her doctor on February 12th and 21st, weeks before her disappearance, but was turned away both times. A couple of side notes. First one, why do reporters use the surname of the victim all the time? I think that it's better to personalise, and Jessica was a real person, the victims are real people. They're not generally called their surname in real life, so why are they, like that way in articles? If you know the answer, comment below. And I hate hearing that people who need help and are asking for help get turned away from mental health services. It's absolutely disgusting. I hear it all the time in this country, and it's just not good enough. So from tvnz.co.nz, there's just a bit of a timeline at the bottom here. Jessica Boyce, 27, was last seen on March the 19th, 2019. Her family reported her missing and said they were concerned for her welfare. When her car was found at Lake Chalice on March the 22nd, a search and rescue team joined the search. Police issued a statement on the case on March the 26th. 8 days after Miss Boyce went missing, search efforts were suspended. In October 2019, police announced they were treating her disappearance as a homicide. From stuff.co.nz, this is October 2019. Police search undirect vehicles and search for Jessica Boyce's body. Canvastown residents are shocked their small settlement is at the centre of a homicide investigation as police search a property for the body of missing Marlborough woman Jessica Boyce. The property in rural Marlborough is littered with close to 100 wrecks of old cars, utes, vans and buses. So quickly going back to that map, this was down here where Blenheim and Renwick were. This is the Richmond Hill Forest Park, and up here is Canvastown. And for those viewers who are not from New Zealand, this is the top of the South Island of New Zealand. A tractor driven by a police officer could be seen lifting and pulling the vehicles away on Thursday, with officers checking the ground underneath. Gosh, what a job for them. Police confirmed that officers were looking for a body at the property. The Canvastown search was expected to finish on Thursday night and no arrests had been made, a police spokeswoman said. Look at all those cars. Gosh, if they went through all those, what a job. It's crazy. That's a nice photo of Jess. Police had also searched a property in the coastal township Wharanui, 60 kilometres south of Blenheim. That search had finished and some items of interest had been taken away for further forensic examination. One person was at the Wharenui property when police arrived and was spoken to, but nobody was arrested. Detective Senior Sergeant Sloan had a message on Wednesday for, quote, those struggling with what they know about Jessica's disappearance, unquote. Come forward to ease that struggle, Sloan said. Sloan said those responsible were likely acquaintances of Boyce. Boyce's mother, Kay, said in April her daughter had been suffering with depression, anxiety, and memory problems due to a car accident 2 years earlier and was self-medicating with drugs. A team of 6 Blenheim detectives and 1 detective sergeant had spent the last 7 months sifting through more than 120 tip-offs to eliminate false leads before the case became a homicide investigation this week. More than 40 investigators, dog handlers, scene of crime officers, and specialist search crew were taking part in the searches, with police from the top of the South and Canterbury involved. On Tuesday, police said they believed the red Holden Rodeo ute Boyce was last seen in had been deliberately planted at Lake Chalice at Mount Richmond Forest Park to mislead police. Sloan said investigations of this nature do take time, and we're all well aware of the public's expectations, but it's not a TV show, and the reality is it does take time. That's a lovely photo. Just before we go on, I don't believe in victim shaming or victim blaming at any stage. No way. I think that it doesn't matter whether people suffer from addictions, mental health issues, about their past. Every victim deserves to be heard, and is, I don't want to see any victim blaming in the comments below. Anything like that will be quickly moved off, I can tell you now. I believe that most of you are in the same thinking as I am, so I trust in that. Now, moving on to the Otago Daily Times. Just a quick note, if someone can help me, there's 2 dates here. Up here we've got Thursday, 14th of May 2020. Down here we've got 7th of November 2019. Now, when you're trying to put together a cohesive story for people in chronological order so that it makes sense, it's hard to do that when there's 2 dates. So if anybody knows why that is, or which one's the right one, if they could comment below and let me know, that would be awesome. So Marlborough Police have searched 2 more Blenheim homes and seized several items of interest in the Jessica Boyce homicide investigation. A Warwick Street property in Mayfield was searched yesterday with several items of interest seized by police, Senior Sergeant Sloan said. This morning, another property was searched in Henderson Street, Riversdale, where samples of forensic value were seized. Forensic scientists helped police at both addresses. Occupants of both properties have been spoken to by police, but no arrests were made, Sloan said. The investigation continues to receive information from the public, and investigators are steadily working through inquiries that have been generated from the information, he said. And down below is contact information if you have anything to submit. And I'm going to have all that information in the description box below and at the end of the episode. Now moving to marlboroughweekly.co.nz. Families share victim's photo to shame killer. Good on them. And it's an awesome photo of her as well. The family of missing woman Jessica Boyce want people to share her photo on social media to help shame her killer into coming forward. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Jessica's cousin Aaron has posted a new profile pic of the smiling Renwick woman who disappeared on March 19. He urged people to share the photo in the hope it would prick someone's conscience. In the post, he says how he hopes the post would propel people to come forward. And I reckon if we give it a shot too and share it as much as we can and share her image as much as we can, just never know, because it just seems so close to being solved. Beautiful Jess, keeping her as my profile photo in solidarity with investigators and everyone else trying to get justice for Jess. Hopefully seeing Jess everywhere might break the conscience of whoever is involved and propel them to come forward. And this line simply states why I do this work. Anything's worth a shot, eh? If anyone else wants to do this, even just for 48 hours, it would be really cool to see her smiling everywhere, he wrote. Possible forensic evidence relating to the homicide investigation has been seized by police from a Blenheim home. Police working on the disappearance of Renwick woman Jessica Boyce, 27, searched a house on Warwick Street and another on Henderson Street last week. Detective Senior Sergeant Sloan says the occupant of the Warwick Street address was spoken to by police on Thursday, but no arrests have been made. He goes on, a second warrant was executed at a Henderson Street address and samples of potential forensic value were seized. The investigation continues to receive information from the public, and investigators are steadily working through inquiries that have been generated from that information, he says. Forensic scientists from crime scene specialist firm ESR assisted police at both addresses. Jessica was last seen in a red Holden Rodeo ute in Renwick. The ute was found 3 days later at the Lake Challis car park in the Mount Richmond Forest Park, but police bosses think it was left there deliberately to hinder the investigation. Detective Senior Sergeant Sloan says inquiries are ongoing. Next we go to stuff.co.nz/Marlborough Express. Now, I want to just give a bit of a warning. This article focuses on drug use and mental health issues, also issues about car accidents. So, if any children are watching or this might trigger you in any way, please fast forward a bit and miss this bit. However, there will be information about how you can seek help if you need to at the end of the show and also in the description box below. For Jessica Boyce's friends, reminders of the girl they lost linger in the patchwork alterations she made to their clothes, the stray cat that still visits for biscuits, the feathers and dream catchers hanging in her bedroom. But the woman they knew was lost long before she became a missing person, believed to have been killed in March. Friends and family trawled forests, circulated missing posters, and launched a website. But Boyce has never turned up, and police launched a homicide investigation in October. In the 2 years before she disappeared, Boyce had stopped seeing her friends, started smoking methamphetamine, and her happy, bubbly nature had been replaced with the effects of severe mental health issues. Not a good combination, mental health issues, and then adding that horrible shit mess on top of it. She was never the same after a crash in March 2017, which left her with a head injury, broken ribs, a fractured shoulder, and a broken neck. Dylan Sutton, 24, died in that crash. The driver was Jessica's ex-boyfriend, Stuart Holdham. He was found guilty of manslaughter at the High Court in Blenheim in May last year and was sentenced to 5 years and 6 months imprisonment. My opinion, just my opinion, I don't think that was long enough. Jessica gave evidence in the jury trial, breaking down as she described Holdham's scary driving. And this is a picture of Dylan Sutton, the young 24-year-old killed in the crash in 2017. A life lost. The methamphetamine came from Stuart. We had 2 or 3 goes on the pipe each, Jessica said. I think he was getting a bit paranoid because we were talking amongst ourselves. The 2 women in the back seat were whispering about Holdham's driving and holding hands out of fear. As the 4-wheel drive approached a bend north of the Waiau River Bridge on State Highway 6, it rolled down a bank into a vineyard, landing upside down. Boyce had leaned over her friend in the back seat to brace for impact, she told the court. And this is Steph Stratton, and her brother was one killed, and she's a friend of Jessica's. Ambulance staff described the crash site smelling like cannabis. Debris was strewn across the vineyard, a trail of car parts, clothing, and fishing gear. Sutton's girlfriend called emergency services on her cell phone shortly before 11 p.m. The helicopter couldn't get to us because it was raining and it was too windy. The police and ambulance came. It was raining quite heavily by that stage, Boyce said. The ambulance and police took us to Wairau Hospital. I was there maybe like 2 weeks. I broke the top of my neck. They call it the hangman's break. Nina Hagen, a friend, said the creative, caring, bright spark she went to school with was different after that. Hagen said Jess blamed herself, and I think that made it even worse. If it was just the crash, that wouldn't have been that bad, but she blamed herself for the guy dying. She had that survivor's guilt. She goes on, usually she's the one texting everyone to say, come around and have some drinks, and then all of a sudden, nothing. I'd text her after the crash to see how she was doing, but she didn't want anyone to come to the trial or talk about it. She didn't want to burden anyone with it. I've had personal experience with head injuries, and I know they can change a person's personality absolutely completely to a person that you don't know. It can also make them very naive and trusting, a bit immature in a way, and they've got to learn a whole lot of things again. It's these head injuries can be quite devastating. The original Boyce was a bit of a teenage rebel who was capable of getting good grades in school but did not turn up much. She would jump in the sea in the middle of winter and wander where no one else wandered. She fancied herself a matchmaker, always trying to set up single friends and always ensuring that everyone felt included in a group. Boyce wanted to be a counsellor for a while. She put everybody first. Steph Stratton said Jessica liked Harry Potter and Disney movies and named her dog Alice after Alice in Wonderland. And I'm guessing that this is a photo of Jess and Alice. Boyce dismissed mainstream fashion and came up with her own style. She didn't care what others thought. That was her inner child. She was just a free spirit, Stratton said. There were spontaneous camping trips. There was a river she thought was her secret river. She would find a little off-road path and then it would be her track. She found some amazing places. We did a lot of unprepared camping, but as long as you have music, that's the main thing.
So I just thought we'd have a quick pause because we're halfway through, and that means I can actually talk to you guys for a minute or two. What do you think of my new logo? It's got like the world, and then it's got a weird looking kiwi and a magnifying glass. It's about as good as it gets. And I'll tell you what happened. I put the kiwi in the middle and somehow his eyes disappeared, like the middle of his eyes, like the white bit and like the black dots where your pupils would be, gone. And I spent hours upon hours trying to get like apps and tools and shit to like, color in the eyes. It wasn't working. It was shit. So I ended up just giving it 2 black dots and going with it. But if you can see it not on your phone, on a computer, it looks better. But it's as good as it's going to get, if you need mental health help in New Zealand, there's lots of sources in the description box below. And it is hard, mental illness, of course it is. It's hard for the person suffering, and it's also very hard on families watching their loved ones suffer as well. Absolutely. I know, Pam. I know. It was bad. And it took me hours. just to end up with 2 dots in the eyes. But, you know, I'm not a graphic designer at all. And I use the basic software and I do the basic shit because I ain't no good at it. And I know that. I'm okay with that. I know there is a few of you lurking in the back. Please come down and say hello. We do not bite. I don't bite. We're friendly. We have a bit of fun, have a bit of coffee and chat. And we'd love to have you there. Well, keep going, my darlings. We're halfway through. Thank you so much for being here with me. I appreciate it. Hi, Nikki. Yes, I'm live. We are halfway through one of my cold case videos. Summer, I know, it was funny. It was funny. It is evening. It is 9 p.m. in New Zealand. We're going to watch the rest of this video. It was one of my early videos, actually. And we can keep chatting. Okie dokie.
Jess would say, I don't care what you listen to, but I'll hold the auxiliary cord. When Holden came on the scene, the ex-boyfriend and the driver of the car, Boyce became distant and started smoking methamphetamine. I know for a fact she was ashamed of her drug use, Stratton said. If it was any of us going down the path that Jess was going down, she would have lost the plot at us and asked why we were destroying our lives. The trauma of the crash, followed by her recovery in hospital and then the court process, only increased Boyce's drug use, her friends said. And this is the guy that was driving, sentenced to 5 years and 6 months for that young man's death. Stratton said there was a bit of a blame game after the crash and Jessica copped it. People said things to her, but what they got from Jess was utter remorse. They needed someone to scream at, and Jess was there. So it sounds like she had a lot going on. He was never sorry, so Jess had to be. Someone had to be sorry, and that's just who she was. In the months before Boyce's disappeared, she twice visited the mental health service at Wairau Hospital in Blenheim. But she was not considered high risk, despite having symptoms of depression, anxiety, and memory problems, as she was not actively trying to hurt herself. I think that's absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. So if the only time they're saying you get help is if you hurt yourself and then you get help, that's absolutely tragic. When someone is actively trying to help themselves and they want help and then they get turned away, I just don't understand. Her mother, Kay Johnston, previously said that Jessica was in a bad mental state. Their doctor arranged an urgent meeting with specialist mental health services, but at the end of the day, they gave her a couple of tablets and sent her home, her mum said. Jessica moved back in with her mum, but often disappeared from the house. She had a second mental health assessment on February 21. She was referred on to drug and alcohol treatment, but missed her follow-up appointment on March 6. She knew she needed help and she wanted help. She even told them that, her mum said in April. A couple of weeks after that, she went missing. She was gone, just like that. I feel if they, meaning mental health staff, had listened to me and the doctor, she would be in Nelson right now getting the care she needs. Boyce was last seen on March 19. 3 days later, on March 22nd, Johnston, whose red ute was missing, called the Marlborough Mental Health Service to see if Boyce would be given treatment if she was found to have taken the truck. The Mental Health Service's General Manager previously declined to comment, citing privacy, but acknowledged Boyce's family was distressed. How nice of her to acknowledge that they were distressed. How the hell did that help them? Johnston reported the ute stolen, hoping if Jessica was found in the ute, she would be given help. When search and rescue teams gave up the search, the family took over. 6 Blenheim detectives and a detective sergeant had been sifting through more than 120 tip-offs to eliminate false leads before searching 6 Marlborough properties seizing items of interest for forensic analysis. Investigations team leader Detective Senior Sergeant Sloan believes Boyce's disappearance was the work of her acquaintances. Police knew of her involvement in Blenheim's pervasive and growing meth scene, and their inquiries were focused on that community, Sloan said. Police were waiting on the results of forensic analysis, but weren't rushing to make an arrest. He said it's going to be a long, drawn-out investigation, but the police will keep working on it. We won't be closing this investigation until it's resolved. Frontline police did not see much methamphetamine use firsthand in Blenheim's nightlife or when visiting house parties, but they definitely seen the aftermath. The effects on behaviour, the extreme behaviour displayed by users, and the crimes committed to support their habits, burglaries and stealing from their own families and that sort of thing. Nina Hagen, a friend of Jess's again, said meth was not socially acceptable in Blenheim, and Jessica knew it. She said, I think most people would say with partying that there's a line and you've crossed it. I know people who would do ecstasy and LSD who still wouldn't do meth. She crossed over that line and she was ashamed of it. She says there is limited help for meth addicts in Blenheim. There's nowhere in Blenheim for someone to walk in off the street and say, I need help. If I go home, I'm going to keep smoking meth. Steph Stratton says, you walk into the hospital and they call the police. It's really sad that there's no help, and these people up in Blenheim, they feel like there's no help and nowhere to go. That's really sad. I am slowly losing my voice. I've done a lot of filming and talking, so just bear with me. She said it's just sad to think that Jessica probably continued to fall down this terrible hole, and she felt like there was no way back up. And yet, Troy McGregor, a friend of hers, said they had not given up hope their friend would walk through the door one day. He said, we know it's unlikely, but you can never say never. Boyce's uncle Brent Boyce said on behalf of the wider family this Christmas would be difficult, their first without her. He thanked the police for their diligent investigation and their efforts to bring the family closure, as well as the unwavering support from the community. He goes on to say, Jess, you were the best we could ask for. We will cherish our moments forever. We can't see things ever being the same without your radiant, bubbly spirit. Never have we dealt with anything more difficult than facing or having to face each day without you being there in our lives. We've never met anyone like you, and we thank God we had a chance to know you as our gorgeous girl. It would be a blessing for us all if we could get you home. That makes me quite emotional. As I said, if this story triggers anything for you, there is a whole bunch of numbers here that you can ring to get help. I'm going to put all these in the description box below, and also I'm going to have them at the end of the episode. On October 22, 2019, the police released an update. Police are now treating the disappearance of 27-year-old Jessica Boyce as a homicide. We know about the car. Police now believe the vehicle, which has been seized for forensic examination, was deliberately left in the car park in an effort to mislead the investigation. As a result of their inquiries, investigators have identified a number of other locations of interest in Marlborough. Additional resources from the Tasman and Canterbury police districts have been deployed to Marlborough to assist with the investigation, which remains a priority for police. Police are committed to supporting Jessica's family throughout this investigation, and we extend our sincere condolences to them following this serious development, and we do too. Again, information down there where you can ring or get hold of police. I'll have that in the description box below or at the end of the show. And then on the 19th of March 2020, so just a couple of months ago, the police released another statement, and I'm at scoop.co.nz. This Thursday, 19th March 2020, will mark 1 year since the disappearance of Marlborough woman Jessica Boyce. An intensive search was undertaken, but sadly, Jessica was not located, and in October 2019, police announced we were treating her disappearance as a homicide. 6 detectives are working on Operation Largo, the investigation into Jessica's disappearance. Our officers have established that a significant amount of misinformation has been received by police in what appears to be a deliberate attempt to impede and frustrate the investigation into Jessica's disappearance. What a bunch of, I'm not going to say. This includes the placement of Jessica's red Holden Rodeo ute in the Lake Chalice car park, which we believe was put there to mislead the investigation team. Police are also aware that several persons of interest have left the Marlborough area over the past year, possibly in the mistaken belief that this will help them avoid police attention. And New Zealand's a small country, so it doesn't matter where you go. And with the power of social media and Kiwis, I know Kiwis want things to be found out, and they want to share things, and they want to help victims and help victims' family. So move away. It's not going to make any difference. Police said, despite these obstacles, the investigation team is steadily working through and following up on all information received. We remain absolutely focused on resolving this case and providing answers for Jessica's family and loved ones. We are continuing to make progress, and on the 9th of March 2020, Marlborough Police seized a black Mazda utility vehicle, which we believe is connected to Jessica's disappearance. The vehicle is currently undergoing a forensic examination. Now, with the COVID-19 lockdown that we've been going through, I don't know whether the ESR scientists and forensic examiners were considered an essential service. So I don't know whether they continued to do their work through the lockdown or whether they had to stop. I know that forensics can take quite a while to come back, and if they shut down over the lockdown, then obviously they've lost all that time to work on it. But here's hoping, as I'm filming this on the 15th of May, that now we're in level 2, they've all gone back to work and we'll work on all this forensic stuff and find out some information. Obviously, information about where you can submit, I will have that down below and at the end of the show. From the nzherald.co.nz, on the 17th of March 2020, Jessica Boyce's family make heartfelt plea to her killer. The family of murder victim Jessica Boyce have made an emotional plea to her killer to end their torment. As the first anniversary of the day she disappeared approaches, Jessica's cousin Aaron has a message for her killer. Hand yourself in. And he is begging for the murderer to reveal where Jessica's body can be found so she can finally be laid to rest. In an open message to the killer, Aaron says he still hopes that Jessica's killer will do the right thing. He says, you have had a year to do the right thing. I still, perhaps naively, hold on to hope that your conscience will get the better of you, that any good values your family may have instilled in you when you were young will win out. You'll make an attempt at redemption and you'll either hand yourself in or at least find a way to communicate to us where we can find and retrieve Jess, he says. Jessica's disappearance became a homicide investigation in October. Posting on the Find Jess website last week, Aaron says the killer must be struggling with what they have done. Now, I don't think the website is active anymore. I had a look, but the Help Jess Facebook page is still active. I went on there last night and asked to join, and someone accepted it. So I will have information about that in the description box below and also at the end of the episode, and you might want to join and help them out. In January this year, they held a vigil for missing Marlborough woman Jessica Boyce, and this is from stuff.co.nz. The 28th birthday of missing Marlborough woman Jessica Boyce, who police suspect is a homicide victim, has been marked with a vigil in Blenheim. A group of 15 people gathered in central Blenheim at Seymour Square to mark Boyce's birthday on Sunday. Her cousin Aaron said the event was subtle and non-official because that's how Jess would have wanted it. He said, we sat around and we shared some memories. We collectively sang happy birthday for her, and then we had a moment of silence for her after the clock tower went off at 7 p.m. We told people there's no need to turn up with candles and bunches of flowers. We wanted to share some jokes and turn up as we were, as Jess would have liked it. You can see in there, I think she has a lot of photos with pets, and this is just a gorgeous photo of her, that wee kitten. A further 50 people watched the vigil via live stream on Facebook from places such as Auckland, Wellington and Dunedin, and that's awesome. Her cousin from Dunedin, Aaron, stepped back from the search last June after the toll it took on his life. He said he had been putting off returning to Blenheim because of the memories he had in the town with his missing cousin. I've got so many memories of being with Jess in this town that every park, every street, it's like seeing ghosts of Jess, he said. It became obvious to the family a lot sooner than it was officially announced that she had been killed. I've known for a good while that Jess was never coming back, and that's Aaron on the left there. He said, while it was painful, he said Boyce's birthday was a realisation that he had to come back to town and front up to the truth. With her birthday coming up, I knew that I couldn't miss that. I couldn't not be here with family and friends. And, you know, this just goes to show what happens to the family when someone is missing or is hurt, murdered or whatever. It's not just the mum and the dad and the siblings, it's the wider family and the wider friends. It actually affects a lot of people. And that's really sad. I know this guy did so much searching. He held down the website for a while, he did the Facebook page for a while, and it all got a bit too much for him. And I actually think he probably suffers from a bit of PTSD after all this, and I imagine he's still suffering from this. So that's why I really want to help, and that's why I do these videos for the families and the victims, but for those families that need help, I reckon we can help them. I really do. So just before we go over the last details here, thank you very much for putting up with me, and I apologise again for the quality of the video and the audio, but I have to work with what I've got. I do hope one day I can get some better equipment. So let's just go over the main points. Jessica was last seen on March 19th driving her mother's red Holden ute. Two hikers found the vehicle abandoned near Lake Chalice in Mount Richmond Forest Park, 90 minutes west of Blenheim on March the 22nd. And you can see my computer's doing the funky chicken. Why not? Police are treating the 27-year-old's disappearance as a homicide. On 9th of March 2020, Marlborough Police seized a black Mazda utility vehicle, which we believe they said is connected to Jessica's disappearance. In November 2019, a Warwick Street property in Mayfield was searched with several items of interest seized by police. Another property was searched in Henderson Street, Riversdale, where samples of forensic value were seized. Occupants of both properties have been spoken to by police, but no arrests made. The family of missing woman Jessica Boyce want people to share her photo on social media to help shame her killer into coming forward. Her cousin Aaron urged people to share the photo in the hope it would prick someone's conscience. And of course, that's exactly what we're going to do. He said, hopefully seeing Jess everywhere might break the conscience of whoever is involved and propel them to come forward. And he is begging for the murderer to reveal where Jessica's body can be found so she can finally be laid to rest. In an open message to the killer, Aaron says he still hopes that Jessica's killer will do the right thing. So if you have information about Jessica's disappearance and possible homicide, no matter how insignificant or significant you think it might be, please contact Marlborough Police on 035785279. Information can also be provided anonymously via Crimestoppers on 0800 555 111, or you can go online.
So obviously, if anyone's watching and needs any of those links, they are in the description box below. It seems like we have got a big discussion about cats going on. You all know I'm a cat lover. I've got my Ronnie, who was supposed to be my co-host, but turned out to be a bit unreliable, a little. In fact, he's not even here today for the show, so it's a bit rude, really. That's why I thought maybe not TJ and Ronnie's show, because I just can't count on them. The 4-month-old, yeah, is he spayed yet? Because I reckon that a lot of cats do calm down when they're spayed. I know Ronnie got extra lovable and annoying when he was spayed. I thought that, like, you know, he would well, he was already really like snuggly, and he just got worse. Oh yeah, that's right. Deb and Amelia have the same logo. That's so funny. That's so funny. New Zealand and the World Mysteries, that's very good work. I think it works. I think it works because I don't want to limit myself to just New Zealand cases, and I'm kind of scared that people won't watch me because it's got just New Zealand in the title. So I thought if I just popped "and the world" in the middle of it somewhere, it would kind of tell people that I'm doing a bit of both. So what I'm doing is 2 or 3 times a week, 11:30 a.m. New Zealand time, I am covering cases from USA and all around the world. Hi, Aaron. We were just talking about you, just saying that we had that interview together. Hi, did you see Jess was featured on the AM show? No, I didn't. But I have been seeing she's in the news a lot lately, though, which is awesome. But you know, it's her anniversary of her going missing. She's going to be in the news for a few days, and then it sort of just goes away again. You know, Aaron, I really thought this would be solved by now. I really did, and I'm really sad that it's not. Yeah, I'm hoping it will extend my audience. Because if you don't know, I kind of had a bit of a mental health break and sort of lost my job. I'm picking myself back up again, but I'm not going back to work just at the moment. I'm having a break, and I'm putting everything I've got into my YouTube. I don't think it's ever going to make me enough money to live on or anything like that, but I'm hoping that it will make just a little each month, just like a tiny little bit to get by. But we will see. I don't know. We will see. You've got rain, Pam, because you're in your winter over there, right? We are at the end of our summer. So we'll be heading into the colder days, which I prefer. I don't like the heat at all. Aaron, if you're still in here, love, I will try and find that AM segment and watch it myself. Nikki says this channel is exactly what true crime on YouTube should be, sharing awareness of crimes that should but are not in the news. Absolutely. Aaron says, my ears must have been burning. Yeah, we'd hoped for an arrest by now, but sadly not to be. Just a heads up, there's a big feature coming up on Stuff this weekend about New Zealand's missing woman. That's awesome. Thanks for that, Aaron. I will be looking out for that. One of the hardest things in New Zealand is we don't actually have a database of missing persons. We have like about 20 on the police website, but we know there's over 400 missing at any one time in New Zealand. And I've got to go digging to find those stories. I hate the heat too. Spring started last Sunday, so that means our autumn would have started. But we didn't have much of a winter in Southeast Ohio. So have you guys been watching The Wheel? I'll show you. Wheel of Names. Hang on, I'll show you. So this here, when I find it properly, is what we've been using. So I've lost a few states and places because I was figuring around with the colors. But the idea is that I put all the US states in there, and I put some countries around the world in there. And at the end of every live stream in the mornings at 11:30, we spin the wheel like so. Actually. And whatever it lands on is what I cover in cold cases for the next show. It's actually been quite cool, different, but cool. You know what I mean? Oh my God. $20. Thank you so much, Summer. Oh, that is so nice. Thank you so much. That's awesome. Dev, I am the database. Yeah, you know, yes, to be honest. I've got, and there's another couple of missing persons groups on Facebook that are really good as well. Love The Wheel. I love The Wheel. I just have to go back over and put some places back in because I've lost a few places because I was trying to play with the colors and make it pretty. I had a feral kid and he kind of stayed like that. Keep him away from overstimulation. A lot of pats and love. If he gets aggressive, sternly say no and put him away in his house area for time out. That's good advice. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Salma. That means the world to me. 100% chance of rain in the next 3 days. Actually, I don't even know what our forecast is. It hasn't been too bad. Apart from the fact that the North Island had Cyclone Gabrielle. I mean, that was bad for sure. Silly girl. Yeah, I know. Shut up, Pam. You always pick on me, Pam. I try and give him love, and he is warming a little to me, going to try the house and time out. It's tough with rescues, isn't it? Like, because you don't know what their life has been like. You don't know what sort of start they got to life, whether they were handled a lot. Of course, if they're not handled a lot when they're little or born, then, you know, that can set them up, you know. Got to send some love to my neighbor. I appreciate it, babe. It's great. Yeah, it's cool that Aaron showed up just when we were talking about him, so his ears must have been ringing for sure. Are you interested in watching the interview with him? We can put that on. I know you do. I know you do. Right. If I just bear with me, my friends. I'm going to have a look. Yeah, or separated too early from mum. Aaron, I'm going to put the interview on with you. So that's going to be weird for you and me to watch it together. It's funny seeing yourself on camera, so this will be weird. And I haven't really watched it in a while either. I've just got to find it. And you were the first interview I'd ever done too, I think. So that was pretty cool as well. I'm trying to find it. All right. Here we go.
Welcome to this very special video. I'm really looking forward to it. Today, I am talking to Erin, who is a cousin of Jessica Boyce, and she's this beautiful young lady that went missing in Marlborough in 2019. And I'm really looking forward to hearing Erin tell Jess's story. A couple of things before we go on. We're going to talk about some drug abuse and mental health issues. If either of these are a trigger for you, I really want you to go into the description box below afterwards, and there is lots of helplines that you can ring. So, you know, if it gets too tough, please stop at any time. Also, I have no time for victim blaming or shaming on this channel in the comments at any stage. Please be kind, because I know that the family of Jess are going to be reading, and I want you to be respectful, and I know you guys will be. So thank you very much. If you're not familiar with the case, I have links in the description box for the video. So go ahead and watch those first, and let's get onto it and meet Erin. Hi, Erin, it's TJ. Nice to meet you. Welcome to the channel. I'm so honoured that you chose to come on here and talk about Jess's story. So a big welcome to you.
Thank you for the opportunity to do so. I really appreciate it.
That's all. That's cool. So first I want you to tell us about Jess. What was she like?
Jess was a free spirit. She was fantastic to be around, always picked the mood up. I remember a lot of times I'd be going through some issues, and I'd be going through a period where I'd even be sleeping in bed till 1 o'clock in the afternoon, sort of between my own places or even staying with my father. And remember this one occasion I was feeling really rotten in bed, really miserable. It's about the mid-afternoon. Then I hear this tooting coming from outside. Oh, what's that sound? You know, who would this be at this time of day? Jess comes bowling in the house like she owns the place, you know, swings the bedroom door open, and she said, "None of this crap out you get, come on, we're going off for a cruise." You know, she threw me a can of bourbon. She said, "No excuses, up you get," you know. And I remember thinking, God, I'm really not in the mood to do anything today. I'm feeling really down. And that ended up being one of the best afternoons I've had for a while. And it was always like an adventure with Jess, you know. You'd start off in town in Blenheim, and then all of a sudden, half an hour later, you're going around all these beautiful bays around the Queen Charlotte track, and you're on bush walks, and it's just such a scene change, you know, from second to second. And it was just like an adrenaline rush every time you hung out with Jess. It was just, yeah, just full-blown adventures, all sorts of memories created in just a short amount of time. And that's from one afternoon. So I was privileged enough to have 20-odd years with Jess in my life. So yeah, I've got a lot of memories, special memories.
And you guys were pretty close from what I can tell.
Very close. So we met when we were 3. Our mothers were really good friends. We went to kindergarten together, Seymour Kindergarten in Blenheim. And then at the age of 5, Jess moved up to Tauranga for, I think, about 3 or 4 years. And then that was the longest time we didn't see each other for the rest of our lives, basically. She moved back to Blenheim at about 9 or 10. And aside from the odd time where I was sort of moving around the country for work or on my own sort of adventures, Jess and I spent almost nearly every day together into all sorts of mischief as kids, you know, around the different parks and that sort of thing. And then into teenagers and adulthood, like I say, cruising around the Marlborough Sounds and cars and going out to visits to certain places and random midnight visits to places like Cobb Cottage in Blenheim and things like that, historical places, Brayshaw Park. As I say, it was always an adventure being with Jess. Yeah.
She sounds like she was a lot of fun, and I know she was into her dream catchers and her crystals. She made some of her own clothing, which some of them were pretty interesting looking from what I've heard. Yeah, but she sounded like a lot of fun. She had some camping trips that were just on the spot sort of thing. Going into the bush, going into rivers unannounced, all sorts of wild things, which just sounds so cool and so free. So that's awesome. Look, so Jess went missing when she was 27 from Renwick, which is like a little town in Marlborough. Is that right?
Yeah, it's I wouldn't call it a suburb. It's like a satellite town, maybe you'd call it. Sort of what maybe is a smaller scale version of what probably Porirua is to Wellington, or something like that. Yeah.
So would you have an idea of how many people would be there?
In Renwick? Oh, I have no idea. I would be surprised if it was more than a couple of thousand, maybe a few thousand, if that. Just by my estimation, it's a pretty small place. One main street and then just some residential streets off there, and that's pretty much it.
Right. And was it a cliquey town? Did everyone know everyone else's business and know each other?
I can't speak for Renwick itself. Blenheim, everyone knew each other. Everybody knows everybody in Blenheim. It's just, one of those things that sort of naturally happens in a town with a smaller population, certain number of schools, only a couple of high schools, so everybody knows each other. Everyone knows everyone's business, that sort of thing. And that's not always a bad thing. I mean, there's a real community feeling in Marlborough, which is why, for something like this to happen in a place like Blenheim, the Marlborough wider area, it doesn't just affect the family and friends of the victim, but the whole community really feels the impact.
Absolutely.
In a very serious sort of way.
So, Erin, I know that a couple of things happened with Jessica about 2 years before her disappearance. And one of them was that unfortunately she became into drugs. Can you tell us a wee bit more about that?
So Jess did fall in with the wrong crowd. It's a pretty typical story around New Zealand. I'm sure there's no family that doesn't sort of can't relate to something like this happening. She was such a friendly person that she had friends that belonged to all different kinds of groups. She had, your sort of academic, nerdier sort of friends, that fit into that classification. And she had sporty friends, and then she had friends who were sort of into music making and that sort of thing. And then unfortunately, because she did have such a wide circle, that did include some of the people who had addiction problems and who were peddling gear and that sort of thing. And it certainly wasn't helped by a series of things that did happen. A car crash. Anyone who's watched the links in your description or seen any of the media coverage on the case will know that Jess was involved in quite a serious car accident. A couple of years before her disappearance, there was a fatality, and Jess and another passenger got some pretty catastrophic injuries. Jess was actually lucky to survive, and so was her other friend involved in the crash. As I say, one person unfortunately didn't. The driver has since been convicted in jail. To my knowledge, he's still incarcerated. And that sort of set off a chain of events, which I believe ultimately led to Jess's disappearance. She was self-medicating, falling further into contact with the wrong sort of people. And she did reach out for help. There's also some media coverage on that, and was rebuffed by the health system, specifically the mental health system. Jess's family tried extremely hard, were literally pleading and begging mental health services to do something for Jess. When their pleas fell on deaf ears, Jess sort of sunk deeper into her depression, feeling responsible for the crash. She also copped a lot of flack from people regarding her involvement in the crash. And that guilt just got on top of her, as well as some other events that had happened throughout her life. And things spiraled. Again, as I say, it's unfortunately a very common story. And the events that happened a couple of years before her disappearance certainly sped things up in that regard.
Sure. I know that she got a lot of physical injuries in that crash, but I just wanted to touch on the fact that she got some head injuries from it as well. So how did they affect her?
So Jess was immediately prior to going missing in a state of dissociation, unsure what was real and what was not, this sort of seeing and hearing and even experiencing things that weren't happening. It's not my place to go into specific details, but I was living in Dunedin at the time that things were getting really bad, And it was described to me by family members and friends that Jess had reverted into almost a childlike frame of mind. There was even a period there where she was speaking in a higher pitched voice like she was a child. She tried to flee from a moving vehicle, jump out of a moving car, and just things like that. So it was described to the police when she first went missing as you need to be looking for someone that act as if you're looking for a child who's gone missing, basically. And I was in contact with Jess up until about 6 weeks before she went missing, maybe 2 months, sometime in January. And the last message I got from her through Facebook, she seemed to be able to write coherently. I couldn't tell from reading messages that anything was drastically amiss. It was more what she said. She did say that things weren't going too well, and she was doing her best and taking it day by day. Jess never went into detail, so Jess didn't like to feel like she was dragging people down. So if she was having a miserable day, she'd say, oh, things are a bit crap at the moment, but, you know, life goes on, so we'll dismiss it like that. She wouldn't really sit there and she'd be more than happy to listen to other people. You know, she was like a buffer for other people, and like a sort of, you know, she'd let people vent to her, and she'd take on a lot of other people's burdens and try and help where she could. But she wasn't one to sit there and call somebody up and go on about what was affecting her or anything like that. So, like I say, from messaging her, it was hard to tell anything had gone so drastically wrong. And comparing that to what I heard from people who were actually with her in her final months, it sounds like from descriptions that it was a completely different person we were talking about.
Yeah. Gosh, it just sounds like she had just one thing after another, really, in those couple of years, huh? That's terrible. So Jess went missing in the March 19th of 2019, and the red Holden ute she was driving was actually her mum's. Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Yep, and that was found 3 days later in the Lake Chalice car park. Now, this car park is in Richmond Forest Park. Is this a place where you just go normally, or people from Blenheim and that go normally to hang out? Or?
I had never been there before we went searching for Jess myself. I know that Jess had been there in the past from Facebook photos. As for other people, I know that it's a popular spot. There's a dock hut not too far away for trampers, and people go hunting there. And it was actually friends of Jess's who found the ute by coincidence. They were going for a hunt in the area, and remembered seeing a post on Facebook from Jess's sister Mackenzie about the disappearance and the description of the ute, and they phoned police. And even though overall, speaking for myself here, not on behalf of the family or anybody, while I'm personally satisfied that the police have done everything they can, hats off to them, I'm still a bit confused as to why the ute, considering the state it was found in and the circumstances of Jess's disappearance, wasn't fingerprinted and treated forensically a lot sooner than it actually was. There was a bit of a delay there, which I'm sure there's probably a procedural reason. I just haven't had it explained to me, but that's something for me that, in my mind, I still can't quite understand.
Right, so from what I can remember, the windows were all down, the car was unlocked, her crystals were still in there, her phone was in there, and the SIM card had been taken out. Is that right?
Yeah, from my understanding, the phone was even still on charge, sitting on a portable charger in there too. So that was when alarm bells started going off for me, because Jess, as I last saw her at least, wasn't the type of person to leave, but there was still cigarettes in the car and her mobile phone. Those are two things she was never far without. Even if she went off into the bush at the spur of the moment, it's unlikely that she would have left a cell phone and her cigarettes behind.
Yeah, I'm a former smoker, and there's no way I'd go without cigarettes, even if it was to the letterbox, I tell you that.
Yeah.
So in October of 2019, the police then announced they were treating it as a homicide. Do you know reasons, did they tell the family what reasons they'd moved it to a homicide case instead of a missing person?
I was in Auckland at that point, so I actually first found out. I got a phone call from News Talk ZB, a reporter wanting to know what was going on, and that's actually how I learned of it. I actually remember the exact moment. It was the day the Sky City Convention Centre was on fire in Auckland, and we were sort of on the bus at the time, looking at it through the window, and I was holding my phone up, recording it, and then a phone call came through from News Talk ZB, and they said, "Is this Aaron Goodwin?" And I think it was my partner. I answered the phone. She said, "No, I'll grab him for you." And they said, "We're just wanting to know your opinion. How are you feeling about the fact that Jess's disappearance is now being treated as a homicide?" And I said, "This is the first I'm hearing of it. Do you mind if I hang up and call family and friends and take a look at the news and actually see what's going on here before I give any sort of comment?" And that's how I learned about it. And I always knew it was heading that way. A lot of us did. I think that was even said in one of the family statements issued shortly after that. We were expecting the news, even though that sort of didn't numb the blow at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, knowing the sort of people that Jess was hanging around with, it was a foregone conclusion when we didn't find her in that first week. That some foul play, to what extent I didn't know. I thought maybe she was being held or something like that. But yeah, that really brought it home for everybody when it was made official. And I can't say what the police reasons were for finally making that decision, because it was never explained to me. I don't know if the family were told, but I still don't know what it was that actually sort of made them think, okay, we now need to come out and make this official. I'm not sure if it was any one thing or if it was a series of things. Yeah, I don't know how that procedure works.
Did you get much support from the community, or the family? Did they get much support from the community?
Yeah, heaps, and not just Marlborough, New Zealand-wide. Messages of support and sympathy and all that sort of thing were coming through. It really felt like a big family across the country, from the top to the bottom. It really did. I think I can speak for everyone when I say that the family will be forever grateful for the sort of community response that we got. Even some of the caring people in the media, you get your good ones and your bad ones, people who are just chasing a story, but then you get your, for example, one person I'll give a shout out to was Paula Holberg from Marlborough Media.
Shout out, Paula.
Yeah, she would call up just to check, not to ask if there was any update or if there was anything she could publish, just to check and see how we were going. Some messages on Facebook from her, "How are you all doing? I'm thinking of you," that sort of thing. And that sort of sentiment was, very common from lots of people in the media. The police were really great, and just the public at large, just heaps of messages of love and support.
That's awesome. That's so good. So I was going to ask you about the media. I have seen a lot of media about Jess's case, a lot compared to some of the other cases that I see. Was there some bad ones? You wouldn't have to name them, but that News Talk ZB couldn't have been nice to get when you're on the bus.
No, but that was common. I quite often had calls asking me if I could verify a rumour, and there is an article that's online, and the poor reporter on that day, who I was speaking to, she actually sort of bore the brunt of my frustration. She was sort of the last in a chain of people to call me one morning. I got a call, and I can't remember, it was a radio station, and they were wanting to verify if a rumour that they'd seen on Facebook about Jess was true. And my response was, this is the first I've heard of it. It was a pretty gory, nasty sort of rumour. And I said, I hope it's not true. I'm going to check in. I said, have you checked with the police? And they said no. And I sort of spat the dummy, because it was about 7 o'clock in the morning or something. They called me. And they hadn't even checked with the police. And I said, why on earth would you ring one of Jess's family members or contact anyone who knows Jess and ask if something that's horrifying has actually happened without checking with the policers.
Oh.
And immediately after the school, I received a phone call from the reporter at the Marlborough Express. And I just said, look, I've had a guts for this. I'm not coping well. At that point, we were taking tips from the public about what might have happened to Jess. Some of them were very scary. Some of them led me to become a bit paranoid, that sort of thing. Passing those on to the police, and the details of some of them were just, I won't go into details, but it was pretty traumatizing time, and that was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back that morning, and that resulted in an article from the media, Goodwin says this is destroying my life or something, and it was a big write-up about how, basically everything I vented to the reporter about, and I wasn't too pleased that sort of ended up as a story. Because then I sort of got a lot of flack from people I knew saying, oh, why are you trying to make this about yourself when it's about Jess and that kind of thing? And I said, well, actually, I was just having a rant at the reporter. I didn't know this was an interview for a story. I was just telling her I've got some stuff going on in my personal life. Aside from what was happening with Jess, I was sort of in between places at that time. I sort of had a breakdown in a personal relationship, and just some study stuff. I had to cancel a course that I applied for and I was doing, and I left the Polytech to go up and search for Jess and then start the website for the tips and that, and my grades fell behind, and eventually I had to withdraw from the course, and all of the stuff was happening at the same time. And then this poor reporter from the Marlborough Express, as I say, sort of caught the brunt of my frustration that day, and then that turned into a story, and then that led to a lot of nasty messages coming my way, and everything sort of compounds like that. Another media experience I can remember is right at the very start when we were still up in Marlborough looking for Jess, and I was asked my opinion on psychics, people on Facebook saying they had contacted Calvin Cruikshank and people like that.
Yeah.
And I just said, look, my own personal belief is that, I'm not a spiritual person. I'll pass those messages on. I don't take much notice of them, but I know that Jess's family, not everybody, but Jess's immediate family is quite spiritual. I said, I'm sure they'll want to hear it. I passed it on. I don't rate it very much. And that sort of, because Calvin Cruikshank came up in the conversation, my comments weren't directed at him. But the way, if you read the article, it sounds like I was directly attacking Calvin Cruikshank. And then I got a message from his secretary, somebody named Gemma, asking why I had said all this stuff about Calvin Cruikshank to the media. And I was like, oh my God, things just, they just spiral and snowball, and it turns into. So since then, I've made a habit of, if I have a phone call with a journalist, I push the record button now on my partner's phone or another device I have nearby. And I'm very careful to choose my words very carefully and make sure they can't be taken out of context.
Absolutely. Look, I'm so sorry you had to deal with all that. But please don't feel bad about taking time for yourself and making sure that you're okay, because that's really important. You can't help or do anything for Jess and her family if you're not okay. So police searched some properties in the area and took away forensic evidence. And on the 9th of March, seized a black Mazda utility they believe is connected to Jess's disappearance. The only thing we've heard from all of those is that they are waiting for forensics. Do you think, Aaron, that the police kept you guys informed of everything that was going on?
I don't live in Blenheim, so I am not with Jess's immediate family all the time, so I'm not sure what the process has been for keeping them in the loop. But from what I understand, talking to them, the police have been pretty good. There have been a couple of times I've had some tips come through, or I've heard from a reporter that the police have told them something. I've relayed that to Jess's immediate family and been told that they had no idea what was going on. So there have been a couple of instances of that, but I mean, it is an ongoing investigation. The police can't get everything perfect, and I do think they've damn well near come pretty close to, ticking all the boxes. I think they've been pretty thorough.
Yeah.
And in terms of my own personal experience with them, Detective Watson would call me on quite a regular basis, even when I was living in Dunedin, when I was up in Auckland for a while, then in Christchurch, with information and also, again, checking in on me personally and see how I'm getting on. So I personally, speaking for myself, was pretty happy with the way I was kept updated. And anything I wasn't getting from the police, I was getting from some of the reporters who would contact me personally and ask if I wanted an update and that sort of thing, and they would go and speak to police and come back to me with something. So it's been a good sort of relationship I've had with the police and most of the media in terms of getting updates and being kept in the loop.
And we understand that police do have to keep some things to themselves to keep the integrity of the investigation. Police said that they had over 120 tips, but they were given a huge lot of false info, and even think that the ute was planted to try and throw them off. Is that what you guys have heard too?
Yeah, and it's troubling that that's been the case, because a lot of those tips that were passed on to the police came through a website that I was managing, and to myself and other family and friends of Jess, and it's pretty hard thinking that maybe we were even used as a way to throw the police off, knowing that we were giving tips to the police that were coming into us. Some of those tips that we passed on personally might have also been included those ones that were designed to throw the police off the trail. It's just really put salt in the wound, to go and plant the vehicle like that, if that is in fact what's happened and it's looking like that's the case. It's sort of like, to a lot of people, it seems like a crime's been committed, and it's in the past, Jess has been murdered and that was the crime. But as far as I'm concerned, the crime is still happening, if you know what I mean. It's like we're all being held hostage, not just Jess's family and friends, but the Mulder community, anyone interested in what's happened to Jess and wanting to know what happened to Jess. We're all being held hostage because people know the information, they know where Jess is, whether or not she can be recovered, whether or not we can lay her to rest with the dignity she deserves, and they're withholding that from us. And that's one of the things I really hope that the judge, when this goes to trial, is going to take into consideration when it comes to sentencing on what's hopefully a guilty verdict. I hope that they take into consideration when they weigh up mitigating factors, etc., that we gave these people the chance to come forward. We wrote open letters that were in the media and in the Helpline Jess group. We pleaded. We said, please come forward, even anonymously. If you're not going to confess to the crime, then at least tell us where we can find Jess. They had that opportunity to come forward. And you can never put right taking someone's life, but you can at least try and sort of speed up the process of justice, help those wheels spin faster, go to the police, say what you can. Even if you're not going to do it relating to what actually happened in the crime, at least tell us where we can recover a body, or if the body is non-recoverable, where she last was, where we can maybe go and leave a tribute or something like that, a final place where Jess was,
I understand.
So I feel like there is still a great assault happening on all of us and Jess's memory too, and the fact that these people can put an end to this misery and they're not. They read our pleas and they see how it's affecting people and they're not doing anything.
I've heard a lot of families of missing people say that's the hardest part, is they've got nowhere to grieve, no closure or end to that part. They're left just in limbo, and that's really tough. I know that you and Jess's family did a big social media campaign. You did the website, you did a Help Jess Facebook page. You had lots of people putting Jess's pic on their profiles for a while, and I've seen lots of those open letters that you were talking about, trying to shame and guilt those people into coming forward. So you were really giving it everything you had to try and get them to come forward. And it's just,
because I mean, it's also a case of if some of these people involved, they will be involved to various degrees, and as I understand, they were obviously the people who carried out the crime, the people who were just sort of happened to be there at the time, and then there are the people who actively covered it up, the people who threw police off the scene, or at least attempted to, and into the investigation. There are people with different degrees of involvement, and I thought, if out of all of those people, if even one has a conscience and feels genuinely remorseful, because make no mistake, when they're hauled before the judge and their lawyer is going to sit there and say, oh, my client is remorseful, they wish they could have done something, that's crap, because they've had the opportunity. That's crap. And I understand there is an element of fear that probably exists there. Some of these people think, well, if I come forward, I might be the next person to go missing, and I can understand that fear. But there will be people, I mean, it's the 21st century. There are anonymous ways to contact people that even the police have trouble following. There are apps like Wicker, which is an anonymous encrypted messaging service that a lot of people use for, criminal activity and that sort of thing. My sister put out an open letter as well on all forms of social media. She created a Wicker account and she said, look, you don't have to give me any details, just a location. Where can we find Jess? Or, can you name somebody? Anything like that. It's anonymous. It's not going to get tracked back to you. The age group involved, of the people involved, the age bracket, these are people who are certainly tech savvy, and at least the majority of them are. They're tech savvy, and there's no way that they didn't keep an eye on updates in the media. Of course, they're going to want to know how close they are to getting caught. They would have seen the open letters. They would have seen the offer to, message us on an anonymous basis. So when their lawyer tries to convince the public and the judge that these people are remorseful in any way, I don't want to hear a bar of that. That's a load of crap. It's different to start coming forward with information once those cuffs have been placed on your wrist, but that's when it's forced out of you. If you were genuinely remorseful, they would have been there months ago, years ago, over a year ago at least,
Totally agree with you. On that note, just take a break for a couple of seconds, because I'm going to put up some information for where people can call if they have any tips.
Fantastic, yeah.
So if you do have any info about what happened to Jessica, in the description box below for other ways as well. They said they were looking at her acquaintances and they were just waiting for electronic forensic evidence from overseas. Do you and the family think you know who did it or who it was?
I can't speak for anyone else. Me personally, I'm quite confident I know of a few of them. I don't know them personally, and I know of a few of them. But it sounds like this was really unfortunately a crime that was committed by a large number of people, some of whom have remained in Marlborough trying to keep their heads down, and obviously those who have taken off, as police said, all they've managed to do is draw more attention to themselves by doing that, and I suppose that's one of those things that will probably also come up in court.
Yeah.
Along with them,
Yeah. The dickheads don't realise how small New Zealand is. There's only so far they can go. They can't exactly get on a plane and go elsewhere with COVID either, so they're a bit stuck.
These people aren't the sharpest tools in the shed. I think the police have seen through their crap pretty much right from day dot, and they would have probably had an eye on these people before they even decided to scarp them. So they've just really painted an even bigger target on their back. So well done to them.
Do you?
In terms of what that forensic evidence is that the police are waiting on, I'm not sure anyone's been told the specifics in terms of what that entails. Can only speculate. Maybe it's social media stuff, messages. Could honestly be anything.
I have no idea.
They can do.
I have no idea either. Especially the overseas part. I'm not quite sure what that has to do with it, but all we can do is just wait and hope. Like, lastly, Aaron, do you have a message to those responsible?
Basically, what I would say is, and I feel like I'm wasting my breath because I've asked you before, but if you've had anything to do with this and there's an ounce of decency left or humanity left within you, if your parents instilled any of that in you at any point while you were growing up, do the right thing. Don't wait until the cuffs are on. Please, this has dragged on for far too long for Jess's family. She deserves to be laid to rest with dignity. Everyone deserves to know what really happened. And at the end of the day, it can only look better for you when the judge is weighing up whether or not you did anything to help. You can never make up for what you've done, but if you did anything to help bring about justice for Jess, that the ball's really in your court. But do the right thing, because it's not just Jess you've offended against, it's her family, it's her friends, and it's the Marlborough community.
Awesome.
And that's about all I have to say.
Awesome. Look, it's been really nice to have you on the show. Thank you very much, because I feel really honoured that you trusted me to, to do this. And
it's fantastic, and I've watched a few of your videos, and I think what you're doing, giving families, another way of getting their family members, their friends' voices out there, their cases heard, even people who have almost, it seems, been forgotten about, bringing that back to the forefront. I think you deserve the following that you're getting. People want to know what's going on. People aren't satisfied with the fact that a lot of these people haven't had justice. So thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you, Aaron. So we're going to keep in touch, and if there's any updates on Jess's case, I will make sure that you guys hear about them. We will see you next time. Thank you very much for being here to watch this special show today. Please give all of our love to Jess's family. We really do hope that they get some answers soon.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Wow. Oh, excuse me. Oh, hang on. Something's still going. That was amazing. I forgot a lot of information in that interview. I forgot how amazing Aaron was and how articulate he was. You can definitely tell how much Jess meant to him, just in the way he spoke of her. And yet cousins do grow up close and become best friends for sure. So you could just feel that. So I think he's just stepped out to get a coffee. When he gets back, we will bring him up here and he can give us an update if there's any updates, because really I thought it would have been solved by now. Red Rock, TJ is light in the true crime world. Oh, thank you, darling. That's such a nice thing to say. Thank you. I'm still new and I'm just crawling, I'm crawling. While we're waiting for Aaron, if you don't know, I'm doing a charity homeless drive this year. I am collecting donations of sleeping bags and tarpaulins and personal items for men and women, all sorts of different things. And I'm going to go out when it's winter and deliver these to the homeless. I've actually already been giving them out. So I've been stacking my car with them every day and just, there's my co-host. And every time I go out the car, I seem to find people to give them to. So it's really lovely. Okay, I'm going to invite you. Copied. And I think, Aaron, you just click the link that I'm putting in now. This has been a while since I've done this. So, yeah, click that and come on up. Great interview. Thank you so much. Yeah, me and Aaron were both really nervous, but I think we had a good rapport, so it ended up going really well. So it was really nice. And it's hard, speaking about a loved one, it had to be really hard. You don't donate stuff to the Women's Refuge. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's what I love. I love helping people out. And actually, I just signed up while we're still waiting for him. There's a place called Orange Sky in New Zealand that I just found out about, and it's like a big truck, and it's got showers and washing machine and dryers in it and stuff like that. And they park up in some of the big cities, and volunteers go and they do the washing for people. Obviously, we don't shower them because that would be weird. But they also sit with them and talk and shit like that. And I've actually signed up to be a volunteer for that. So I'm looking forward to that. I think it's going to be really, really good. It will get me out of the house. I do have a level 4 qualification in mental health and addiction, which I managed to get. I don't actually know how I did that. But yeah, so Aaron, if you're around, there's a link in the chat, and it says StreamYard.com, and if you click that, it should bring you straight up. It's okay. Yeah, so the link should be above that I've posted. It says StreamYard.com. If you click on that, it should bring you straight up to me. Yeah, I only just learned about Orange Sky. But yeah, they do amazing work from what I can see. So that's awesome. You're a noob. That's a funny word. Oh, you applied to Orange Sky as well? Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I only just recently found out about them. But yeah, I'm into it. I don't mind helping out, you know, for a few hours a week or a fortnight or something. Yeah, they're in a few places, Auckland, Christchurch. All right, we've got Aaron coming up, so let's bring him on and let's have a chat. Hello.
Hi, so it looks like it's all working. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
I can, good as gold. Well, that was easier than I thought it was going to be. So I'm a wee bit in the dark here. I'm just outside having a coffee while my brother cooks something I'm allergic to, so I get right out of the house when that's going on.
Fair enough too.
Mm.
Hey, look, I want to thank you for that interview, because going back now, you were really articulate, and you just gave a great interview. You could tell how much you really loved Jess, and it came out in the way you spoke about her. And it must have been really, really hard to do that at that stage as well.
It's a lot easier talking about Jess herself rather than the actual case. So that was quite refreshing for me, to be able to sit there and talk about good things as well as obviously the bad, the situation at hand. I don't really get the opportunity to do that with the mainstream media reporters and that kind of thing. I've sort of just got to dwell on what's going on now, what's all the negative stuff, why was Jess in such a state, and it was terrible enough as it is, and then having to reiterate all the negative stuff over and over again. It was nice to actually sit back and talk to someone about, you know, some of the good times I had with Jess and whatnot. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't think until you've had a loved one and go missing or whatever, I never thought about that side of it. You know, when you're talking to the media, you're talking about the horrible negative stuff and dwelling on the case. And I didn't really think about that until you've just mentioned it. So,
yeah. So it was one of the more comfortable interviews I've done on the whole case, for sure.
Oh, I'm so glad, because I was nervous as shit.
Yeah, well, I'm not really a confident speaker when it comes to sort of, it's like you see people on game shows and you hear them say, you know, I did so poorly on the chase or something, and they interview them after and they say, I knew the answer to that question and I couldn't think when the cameras were on me. And it's sort of a wee bit of that, you know. As I was watching it, I was like, oh, there's so much more I could have said when I was talking about memories with Jess. There was so much more interesting stuff I could have talked about. But yeah, when you're live and you've got an interview going and that sort of thing, your brain doesn't work how it normally would.
Absolutely. And I'm surprised I actually got some of the good questions out that I did. I thought I did pretty well looking back at it, which is cool. So can you give us a bit of an update? I mean, we don't want to dwell on the bad stuff, but what is the case situation at the moment? What can you say?
I wish there was sort of something I could really say, but things haven't changed all too much since the police sort of got our hopes up a wee bit, saying that arrest was imminent and they knew who was involved. And that is the bottom line. So it's not a mystery who Jess's killer or killers are to the police. We haven't been given any names, so to speak, for obvious reasons. The police can't just be going giving out names and that, especially when they haven't got the evidence to charge the people. And that's where the problem lies, is that they know who it is, but they don't have the evidence to take them through court and get a conviction. So it's not a case of the police are still trying to figure out who done it. It's not a who done it anymore. They know they've got their people. They just don't have what they need to bring them before a judge, and that's the unfortunate situation we're in now.
That's an awful predicament to be in, for sure. Knowing that the police know who it is, I just couldn't imagine how you and the family are dealing with that, and the family being in the same town. Are they still living there?
So the police said in one of the articles, and I also had a meeting, I think it was last May 2022, I actually went up to the station and spoke to one of the detectives, and they reiterated to me what was in the media, and that's that the people involved have fled. Basically, they've all left the region. So no one's in Marlborough, and he told me that I could pass that on to our family as well. He said, rest assured, you're not passing these people in the street on the daily or anything like that, because I said I just moved back to Blenheim at that point. I was stationed with my company's branch up there, and I sort of went and straightened everything out because it was the first opportunity I'd had to actually go into the Blenheim police station for a while and, do things in person rather than over the phone. And it was one of the first things I asked. I said, look, also one of the places I'm working at was MOJ related. So I was like, am I going to be crossing paths with potentially the people that have been involved in my cousin's murder, while I'm living up here? And they said, no, that's not going to be an issue for you. They've all moved away from the region.
Thank goodness, because, gee, that would be an awful thing to have on your brain, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and while I don't know anything for sure, just sort of reading between the lines, it sounds like these people weren't really long time Mulberrians anyway. I don't know if they were just sort of passing through town or had only been there for a few years or something like that, but it doesn't sound like these are people who grew up in Marlborough, and that brings me some comfort, because you hate to think that you're living in a town full of people with the potential to do something like that as well. And my suspicion, even though it hasn't been confirmed outright, you'll often hear me referring to killers rather than a killer. Because with the way they moved the vehicle to Lake Chalice and all the sort of trouble they went through to throw the police off the case and bring in the false leads, I mean, I'm almost 100% certain that there's more than one person involved. It's just too tricky for one person to get away with.
Yeah, I totally agree. Moving the car there, all that sort of stuff, and the police think, it was intentional to throw them off. I think absolutely got to be more than one person for sure. But it's good that you don't have to worry about the fact that Jess grew up with them and went to school with them, and it was one of those sort of people that were close to her. So that's some comfort, I guess.
Because that was a troubling thought for us. It was a really troubling thought, because we were all, like I mentioned in the interview, Jess had all these different circle of friends, but often we were all brought in together, and especially for special occasions, and you don't want to think that you've been breaking bread with, the person that eventually, killed someone you care about and things like that. So that's a small relief, but you take any relief you can get in a situation like this, really. But it was nice to know that likely not from Marlborough, and that they're definitely not still there. So I'm back in Christchurch now myself. But yeah, it was nice to be back in Blenheim for the 9 months I was up there and not have to worry about them being a factor.
For sure. Well, we might bump into each other sometime, because I'm in Christchurch as well.
Oh, nice.
I'm doxing myself a bit, but that's okay. I mean, it's really tough, but we are seeing cases that are being solved after a long time. So there's always a glimmer of hope, I guess. But yeah, is there anything you want to say about Jess and tell us about what you remember? Anything like
My main thing I'm really trying to get out there at the moment, you might have seen in the media this past week, we're going for another sort of push with asking police to stump up for a reward and that kind of thing. It's just basically we don't want her light to be forgotten. You know, she was a light for so many people, and since those arrests never manifested after the police said they were coming, it's sort of like a lot of the media outlets that were interested in Jess's case have lost interest, and that's natural too. That's the news cycle. Obviously, when it's someone you know, it's a top priority for you every single day of your life. It's sometimes all you can think about. But in terms of the media, as rough as it sounds, life goes on, the news cycle goes on, and unfortunately, with the crime wave in this country right now, there's more cases similar to Jess's that sort of get media interest. And we're just sort of at the stage now where we're like, hey, please don't forget Jess. She was a person. She meant a lot to a lot of people. She existed. She's never had justice, and please don't forget her face or forget her name. And that's sort of where we are today.
Yeah. So any idea if the police will stump up for a reward? I mean, I know there's a couple of other cases going on at the moment where they've stumped up for awards. Is that going to be something they'll do, do you think?
I honestly would be surprised. Probably because they wouldn't want to set a precedent where a family comes forward and asks, and then, if they were to say yes to us now, you could imagine all these other families would say, hey, what about us? And that's kind of the situation we're in now, because we've seen the reward offered for Kirsty Bentley in Ashburton. She was a case from 1998. So a long time of not knowing for her family. But then there was another case recently, I think it was a Pacific Islander man, I can't quite remember, but his case was recent and they offered a reward. And I thought, oh, so maybe it's not just for cold cases. So what's the criteria basically? Why is it that some people have these rewards offered and others don't? And I was sort of thinking, was it a good thing? Maybe they're still confident in their ability to do things without a reward, that's why they haven't posted one. But then I'm sort of like, is it because we're not keeping the pressure on? It's been quite a while since police have communicated with family, apart from just the odd little update to say, hey, the case is still active, but not as active. So I just thought, hey, what's the problem with a wee bit of a push to the media? And we're really lucky in Blenheim to have Paula Holbert from Top of the South Media, the Marlborough Weekly. She's taken a personal interest in the case. She's great. Sometimes she just touches base just to see how we're doing and that kind of thing. I mentioned Paula in the original interview we did, and she still keeps in touch. And this latest push, she did an article on the day we marked Jess's 4-year anniversary. And the next day she sent that on to the Herald, who did a piece. And then through that Herald piece, TV3 producers took notice. So Paula's been great. And then I was interviewed by Stuff for a feature that's coming up this weekend about New Zealand's missing woman. And the journalist who interviewed me said, anytime you guys want to write up about Jess, anytime you want to just call me up, pick up the phone, and we'll make sure we get another story out there about Jess to keep her in the public mind and that. So between Paula in Marlborough and this other journalist, I think she's from Auckland, I feel pretty confident that we can keep Jess's name out there. And that's so important because we don't want the people who killed her thinking that things have gone quiet on the home front now, that they can relax and be confident. We want to keep them on edge, because if they think things are still hot, people who are on the edge, they slip up, they make mistakes, they get nervous, they can't think clearly, and we want to keep them on the ropes. And the longer that Jess's name goes unmentioned in the media, the more they probably think that they can get comfortable and relax, and we don't want that.
Absolutely. Some really good points. I'm so glad you've got this reporter. That's so lucky, because I think in the cases I cover, a lot of families don't have good relationships with reporters or the police, and that's really, really sad.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right about keeping them on their toes. I don't know if everybody knows in the chat, but I've got a Facebook page with about 10,000 people on it that's where I generally share my New Zealand cases, and I get people to share them over Facebook. And of course, Jess is one we've always shared. I have a personal interest in it because we've spoken. So it's a case that's very dear to my heart. So I'm going to continue doing that. It's so good that we're having this media push. I love it. I wish I knew how do they choose which cases get a reward?
Yes, that's what I was asking police. What's the criteria, basically? What is it that makes one person's case? Because I thought it was just the length of how long the case had been inactive for. Because in all the other cases I've seen a reward offered for, it was somebody who went missing in the 90s or early 2000s. But then when I saw this other guy a few weeks ago, I thought, well, hey, maybe that's not the case. So is there a chance for Jess here?
Yeah, it's weird. I wish I knew, but I mean, it's one of those things we're never going to know, I guess.
I was kind of, because the reporters, after we made that we plea for help there, financial assistance from the police, they went and spoke to the police, and I was hoping that the police were actually going to come back with a list of criteria. You know, they'd either say, well, yes, Jess is eligible because of X, Y, Z, or no, Jess is not eligible because of X, Y, Z, and then we would know. But when we first thought of the idea of a reward, it was maybe a month or two after Jess went missing, and police said, no, please don't do that. We were looking at fundraising for our own, and they said they were already inundated with so many calls, and as it turned out, years later, we found out that those were misleading calls trying to throw them off the trail. A lot of people ringing up and just causing trouble for them. They said if we offer a reward, it's just going to bog down the investigation even more. It's going to bring all these conspiracy theorists out of the woodwork who are just after some cash. So we thought, okay, that sounds reasonable. But now it's been 4 years, and I've more or less said in the media, well, we're stuck now. So it's kind of like, well, was now the time? That's what we're wondering.
Yeah, I'm wondering too. It's now the time to get a GoFundMe going while Jess is in the media spotlight right now.
Yeah, that might be an idea too.
Yeah, as soon as this week finishes, then it's going to be back to nothing again. And
until it only seems to be her birthday, Christmas, or or the anniversary of her going missing that the media takes an interest. And again, I can understand why. Life goes on for everybody else. The news cycle goes on, and they're obviously not going to keep, especially when there's no new developments, there is nothing to report. So it's not like I begrudge them for not publishing a story about Jess every day. That's just obviously would be absurd and not realistic. As much as we'd love that to be the case, that they could do that. But yeah, if even starting a page for a reward or something like that might get her another article in. I just really want these people that are involved to sort of be like, oh shit, she's in the paper again, they're not letting this go, kind of thing. Really want them to be nervous, more likely to make mistakes.
Yeah, and the police said, these people have been deliberately trying to throw off the police. So we know that they have anxiety anyway.
Yeah.
And definitely we want to play on that. And of course, if you decide to do a GoFundMe to raise some reward, I will post it as far as I can to help you guys. I'd
appreciate that, yeah.
Yeah, but definitely something to think of while she's in the media right now, because otherwise they just drop off. Sad but true.
And that was something the journalist from Stuff I spoke to the other night mentioned too. She said, if you do decide to do something like that, we will make an article and we'll help get that out there. So that's good to have that support. There were a couple of rough comments in the news articles saying, why doesn't the family stump up for it themselves? And 99% of the comments on an article about Jess are obviously going to be people expressing their sympathy, and they're going to be kind, but you always get the odd trolls there. And it's kind of like, well, again, coming down to the criteria and the eligibility, I really didn't know how to answer these people, but my thought was, well, we all pay taxes for the police to apprehend violent people. The people who have killed Jess are out there on the streets. Is it not in the public interest for taxpayer money to be used to help, get these people up in front of a judge and hopefully locked away? And not only that, but Jess's family and friends, we pay tax too, so we pay for those services. So it would be really nice if we could get a message from them saying, hey, look, it's an avenue we haven't explored, let's give it a go. Probably wishful thinking, but that would be my ideal outcome.
You get trolls everywhere, unfortunately. I mean, I just know that being on the internet, it's an everyday occurrence.
Yeah.
Keyboard warriors, and some people just have no compassion and no empathy and no life.
Yeah, it's part and parcel of the digital age that we live in, I suppose. You know, people have got that protection of being behind a phone or a computer screen, and you know, but you come to expect it, and then it doesn't hit so hard. Then you think about the other family members, and you're kind of like, oh God, I hope they don't see that. You know, Jess's siblings and Jess's mum. You think, oh God, I hope they don't come across this.
For sure, because it's got to be tough, right? And I guess some people in the family are different. You know, some have a bit of a tougher shell than others and can take stuff more personally sometimes than others. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, Jess's uncle on the AM show interview, he touched on that too. He said, you know, we've got a range of emotions in the family. He says there are some of us, so we're like, okay, we're coping, and there are some of us, and I think he was alluding to me and a couple of members of Jess's like immediate family. And he said, there are some of us who are sick of waiting and they want answers now. And he said, there's that spectrum of emotion there. And he said, in terms of the reward, that's coming from a more emotive family member, referring to me, of course. More emotive, he's trying to push buttons, but it's like, well, yeah, you know, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So, you know, you got to keep pushing.
Absolutely. Yeah, seriously, chat to the family members, because I think if you're going to do something, now would be the best time to do it.
Yeah.
And especially thank you for giving us the heads up about this article coming up about women missing in New Zealand. That's going to be really good.
Yeah, so I don't know the full details, but the lady who interviewed me, she said, we're speaking about Jess tonight. She said the article's not about Jess, so to speak, but she will get a mention. It's basically a broad thing about these women going missing, and what we spoke briefly on how Indigenous women going missing, young Māori, seem to get less coverage than everybody, that sort of thing. So it'll be a good piece. I think it's a piece that's overdue to be written. I think, I'm not sure if it was in the interview I did with you last time or somebody else I was speaking to, but I said it's an epidemic. Young women are going missing all the time up and down the North and South Island. It's crazy.
And in New Zealand, there's just no database of people that are going missing, and
which is strange. That's always struck me as weird too.
It is. I've got a website that I've started, and I just have never had the time to go and finish it. But I have started a database on there of people that are missing in New Zealand or unsolved murders in New Zealand. So the description for that's in the website below as well. And now that I've got more time and I'm not working, I guess I could put more time into that. But it's very, very odd that New Zealand doesn't have that. The police website does have about 20 missing people, and then that's it. And I've known that there's about 400 missing. So there's a few missing.
Because I remember doing some research when Jess first went missing. I'm a facts and figures kind of guy. So I'm like, okay, what are the odds of a homicide with no body being solved in New Zealand? And the numbers actually aren't that great. But I remember stumbling across an article that said New Zealand detectives actually lead the world in a lot of areas, and we actually have people from overseas come here to study our methods. I'm thinking, okay, so that doesn't really add up with the fact we don't even keep something as simple as a database of who's missing. It's sort of like we're really good in some areas, clearly, and then in others there's just this gap of knowledge, gap of resources. So, for example, when Jess went missing, before we knew she was dead, what she and we said helicopters down. We don't have infrared attached to our choppers. You can get some from Christchurch, but you have to pay for them. I think it was called Garden City choppers. You got to pay for them yourself out of pocket. The police don't supply that. And I was like, okay, that's really strange, considering Marlborough is like an all bush terrain area. We get a lot of tourists, a lot of trampers, a lot of hunters. You'd think that we had those resources, but we didn't. So, yeah, quite strange.
That is so. Manu asked, I think it was, what are the numbers of missing Kiwis? They say around 400 Kiwis are missing in New Zealand at any time. So considering that the police website only has about 20 people on there, there is a huge gap. Very
Yeah, no,
huge
that's
gap.
crazy. And that's a really scary thought.
Where are they going to? I think I've said in a couple of my live streams lately, I'm starting to like put my foil hat on and start
It
thinking
gets
about
like that.
because where on earth are these people going to? They've got to be going somewhere, and sometimes it's just like poof and people vanish, and
And
we
you
don't.
look for a lot of common things. What's linking these women? There's certainly an age bracket where people are more likely to go missing. But wealth and race doesn't seem to be a factor. You see people of all sort of backgrounds and ethnicities going missing. There's a history of drugs or hanging out with the wrong people for a large number, but not everybody. Some are tourists. It's just really hard to find that link as well.
The common denominator.
Yeah, it's a really strange thing, and I think someone should be taking a closer look at it. I mean, I would even go as far as to say a royal commission into why all these people up and down the country are going missing, and the police aren't getting answers.
Yeah. And we don't, and the public doesn't hear about them. I mean,
Yeah.
even me, I search the news constantly looking for missing people or unsolved cases, and I miss them.
Yeah.
I'll be like, oh my God, I never heard of that person going missing at all. And
I put on my
how do I
Facebook
know
the
that?
other day, I took a screenshot of some of the comment threads, and I said this was why it was important to get Jess on TV years ago, because the AM show the other day was Jess's first coverage on television. And all these people were commenting saying, I've never heard of this case before. And I thought, being in the Herald and a lot of nationwide papers, that everyone knew about Jess's case, but there were so many comments saying, I never knew about this girl until today.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
On my Facebook page, obviously, I try and put the cold cases into the public eye as best as I can. And the amount of people that say, I've never heard of this case. When did this happen? Why haven't we heard about this?
And because we're hyper aware of it, we think, how could you not have heard? But
yeah,
I guess it's just not there for most people.
And then the problem I have is when I do go to cover cases, we don't have a lot of media outlets to get information from. We only have a select few, and then if they all say exactly the same copy and pasted shit, then it's really hard to get a lot of different information about cases as well.
Yes, a lot of them do share word. They might shift the paragraphs around a wee bit, but like NZM own quite a few different outlets. So if you see something in the Christchurch Star, you'll almost see it repeated word for word in the Herald or something like that. And there are a few that cross over, which is good in terms of coverage, but not so good in terms of weakness of the article or range of information.
Absolutely. Wow. This has turned out to be one of the greatest nights for a live stream, I must say.
Yes, I just jumped onto Google. I was actually, I've got to go pick up my brother from work soon, so I was just going to make myself some dinner, and I went onto YouTube and I typed in Jessica Boyce, as I do now and again, to see if somebody else has made a video, and I saw you were live. I thought, I'll click on there and see if they've seen Jess's segment on the AM show, and I dropped in when I did.
Yeah, because I had just mentioned your name like 30 seconds before, saying that, I've got the interview with her best friend, her cousin there. Go and watch that. It's really good. So yeah, it was perfect timing. So thank you very much for coming.
Like I said, my ears were burning, even though it's a wee bit cold in Christchurch tonight, but
it is a bit. They might be getting summer across the other side of the world. We're coming into our winter, which I prefer.
I never have, but I'm putting the tinfoil hat on again. I feel like the last few summers, the heat's been a lot different. I used to be able to bathe in the sun all day, and now I can't spend 5 minutes out there. I don't know if it's a climate thing or if it's a ozone thing or what's going on, but I just, for the first time in my life, I'm actually can't wait for it to get cooler. which is not like me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been too hot this summer and the few before it.
I'm exactly the same. I haven't been able to stand the heat. So I'm going to wrap it up, guys, because my mouth is so dry from talking that it feels like I've got cotton mouth. I want to thank you, Aaron, from the bottom of my heart for coming back on, for being so free with your information and free with details about Jess and her life and what she was like, because you speak so beautifully of her, and with all the things that I've heard from her, she was just an amazing young lady.
Absolutely.
And I will
And then
always
thank you for the opportunity too, because like I say, any opportunity to talk about Jess and get her story out there, I'm really grateful for. So thank you.
You're always welcome. Always welcome. Phoebe, it is 10:30 p.m. on Friday night in New Zealand. So I'll leave you there, Aaron. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to just answer a few questions in the chat before I leave.
Oh, you might have to tell me how to leave. I'm not very good with this.
I'll remove you. It's all good.
Okay, cool. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you
Good night.
so much. Good night.
See you later.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm just absolutely stoked. So I wanted to go back and answer a couple of questions because I obviously couldn't. I think somewhere, Blue, you were talking about tags and hashtags and things like that. You know, I don't get tags. I don't know how to do hashtags. I don't know how to do all that shit. It's a young'un thing. And even Twitter, I have a Twitter account, but I don't really use it. I don't know how to get people on it to follow me or anything like that. So, yeah. A lot of prayers and support for you here, and you never know where a tip or a lead will come from. Absolutely. He's always got my support. He always has. You be quiet. Blue says, I'm embarrassed because I'm a Kiwi and follow true crime daily, but not the local news. Haven't seen any coverage about Jessica. Don't be sorry. Like me and Aaron was saying, you can go a whole year and not know any missing persons cases. Absolutely. Nicole, that's okay. Thank you for coming anyway. It's all appreciated. Phoebe, it's 3:33. Are you mad? I want to personally thank each and every one of you for hanging out tonight. It's been such a great live, and thank you for making Aaron feel so welcome as well. That's a beautiful thing about Kiwis and non-Kiwis, I guess, and the support that you've shown me. So I really appreciate it. Manu comes in with the tag, which I don't understand tags. Okay, guys, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much. And